Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're still awake and enjoying the day. It's good to see you all, some familiar faces in the crowd. I'm going to talk about some of our innovations now. We have lots of innovations, which Sean alluded to earlier. One of those that probably touches everybody in the room in terms of what you've got in your buildings is water and taps. And temperature control. Primary form of control for Legionella, and the legislation is to control it by keeping your water moving and keep it within temperature. So this innovation is designed to give you more data, more access to data in terms of controlling that temperature. So the market in terms of our industry has moved on, and it's got really exciting since 2024 and 2023, where the Water Management Society issued 2 documents and recognising for the first time that there is a need and the industry is moving towards more tech-led solutions for delivering compliance. The first document is initial guidance to end users on remote temperature monitoring systems. So that tells you what type of system, how it works, how it delivers the information, how much battery life you need, how many times you need it to read the temperature over a period of time. And then the second one, which was May 2024, gives you an idea of how to use that technology in conjunction with your current systems and procedures, like a risk assessment, for example. So it's an engineered solution in conjunction with a Legionella risk assessment. All of our innovations, our approach to innovation, has to fall within one or more of these categories. So sustainability, key, improved compliance, reduction in energy, and reduction in carbon footprint. This does all of that. So I'm going to talk a bit about the tech and the hardware. So it's remote monitoring, it's combining people, it's combining data to tackle compliance obligations. We're going to talk about water sensors and temperature sensors. However, it doesn't stop there. There are lots of other opportunities once you have this system in place on a site to develop into other areas of compliance. Air, we've touched on that earlier with Sean, temperature, humidity, desktop occupancy, all sorts of things. So from point in time to real time, the current legislation requires you to do a temperature once a month at the sentinel points. Is that enough? Legislation says so. However, with real data, we actually prove that it's not enough. The traditional way of sending a tech in a van to go and take a temperature, to go and put a thermometer under a tap, run the tap for a couple of minutes, write that temperature down, record it, make sure it's recorded right. It's time consuming, it needs travel, it needs to have density of engineers. We are scaling as a business, and the talent pool, I guess, for the number of engineers available is not huge. So we're leaning on technology to grow the business. So that's the old traditional way of, pen and paper. I've been there, I've seen it. Same color pen, same handwriting, all the way down the page. Looks like it's being photocopied, all the same temperature. It happens. This new way of recording temperature at an outlet is just that. It's digital. It's 30-second intervals. It's one-click reporting. All of this is developed and designed within our Epic software, which is our own proprietary software that we've spent probably the last 2 or 3 years and about £3 million developing. It doesn't just do remote monitoring. It's a digital asset-based, risk-based compliance software that records all of the data that we might collect or that you might collect on your sites in relation to water compliance. That's what it looks like. That's the sensor. It's not as big as that. It's about that big, about the size of a Scrabble tile. And we deploy these around all the site. Bit of tech information. It's IP68 rated. It's got all the chips, all the battery encased within it. Really small, really discreet, and easy to deploy. Battery life up to 15 years. And the other part is a cloud connector. So you have one of these, and this is what these correspond with on the site. So once you've got one of those hubs on the site, you can have as many of these around the site and other sensors communicating with the hub. They're easy to install. You can work it with cellular or Ethernet to get the detail and data that you need in multiple forms. About 10,000 of these will work with one hub across your site. So by combining those two elements of hardware, we can give you temperature can be measured anywhere. That is actually in a freezer, that one. So it gives you an idea of other areas of compliance, HACCP, food, drugs, cabinets, maintaining temperature on critical temperatures. And by combining those two pieces of hardware, we can give you accurate temperature insights in graphical format to be interrogated at any time. Recap, 15-year battery life. We actually don't have the 15-year because we're asking this to respond to take a temperature every 30 seconds, which is more like 10 years in one sensor. Engineered for any condition, touch to identify, really easy to deploy, really easy to descale. You'll never lose temperature data. Somebody asked me earlier, what happens if the hub gets switched off or we lose power of a power cut? The sensor itself will continue to record until it then next reconnects to the hub when the power comes back on or somebody switches it back on. It does happen. All that data goes through into our software, which is Epic, which I've mentioned. That's how it looks. So you've got a suite of sensors. You've got our proprietary software sitting in the middle, which for us is everything to the business and the group in that it's our CRM, it's our quote builder, it's our scheduling tool, it's what the engineers use in the field. It does all of our reporting, and it's got a client hub, access hub on the back end of it, the client portal, which we've spent a lot of time developing around people within the room. So we've gone out to the likes of CBRE, OCS, some of the FMs, and some of our direct clients, demonstrated it and had some good feedback from them to get to where we are today. That's what they look like when they're installed. This is our exhibition stand, which was in IHEAM last year. Very discreet, really easy to install. You identify the sensor. There's a cradle that it sits within, which is an antenna and a range extender, and then there's a heat transfer pad that sits between that and the pipe, and that's what allows the transfer of the temperature. So we put it in, we do a calibration, and then it's calibrated, so you don't have to go recalibrating. So there's no every 12 months calibrating temperatures. All of that detail comes into Epic. I could talk about this for another 2 hours. I'm not going to, by the way. To point out that the system this is just scratching the surface of what the system can do. It's a really high-level piece of just informative presentation. I have got space out the back later on in it if anybody wants to do a live demo and see this in action. Everybody I show it to is pretty blown away by the level of detail that the system provides in terms of asset-based risk management. So Epic in itself is a document store, asset reporting, job task completion reports, risk assessment documentation. It's a logbook, but it's online, and it's really flexible. It's got your asset manager. It reports on all of the different non-conformances or conformances around the data that we capture or you might capture around your site when completing PPMs. And then you've got a compliance explorer. So at any one time, what we're doing is give you live information about where the state of your compliance across any particular site, building, part of site, or estate. I've mentioned it's proprietary, interactive compliance portal. A lot of our competitors say, well, it's a window into your world of compliance. This is a doorway you can walk through and interact with your compliance. It's two-way. You feed into it, it feeds into you. So you can be really informed about where you sit in terms of detail and temperature. I've touched on the document store, all of the details, all the jobs, everything that we do when we're going to site, and all of the temperature data is recorded within this system, live and for you to see at any time. A couple of screenshots. This is your view of the dashboard itself, all of your sites, all of the compliance, any non-conformances. You can slice and dice that information any which way you like. This is the temperature bit. It's unique because we're the only company that has this in the same place as our client portal and all of your asset information and compliance information. Everywhere else on the market, you have to go into another dashboard or go and look at another portal. It's all together and it's all relatable back to the assets that you've got on site. So at any point, you can click on any of this information and look at what is happening with regards to that outlet in terms of temperatures. It gives you the last 24 hours, the last 7 days. It'll give you weekly minimum, average, weekly maximum, and then rolls all that up into a weekly report. So that every week you can take a view of what actions are required against temperature, the primary form of control against Legionella, bacteria and water on your estate. The reason we say weekly is because the minimum denominator for an action is a weekly flushing event. So if a tap hasn't been used for a week, the water hasn't moved, therefore it's potentially stagnating, so you go and flush it. If you've got these deployed and you're in a hospital and you've got 150 taps, generally those 150 taps will be flushed because who knows what's been used in a week. With these deployed, we can tell you what's been used, and therefore you're flushing your taps on your weekly flushing regime as part of exception rather than rule. So what we're not doing is going flushing water down the drain. You're not heating 50% of that water in order to provide a compliance point. So there are savings in wasted water, in heating, savings in delivery to site. The non-access issue around healthcare, around whether it's student accommodation, being able to get into a site, it's the biggest problem we have in the industry, is going to a site and not being able to go and do what we need to do. So this takes that away. It'll sit there and it'll be monitoring, and we can sit from afar. We've put an account manager behind this. Every client has an account manager that sees all this data coming in and can support the client and the customer in relation to compliance, monitoring, being ahead of any issues, so we can see them coming down the line before the traditional way, whereas you'd wait a month, you've got a problem. You're waiting a month, you've got a problem. So we can be very reactive and proactive. Once we've got all this information, all this information coming back to us, we can then actually start to tell you, well, we're not visiting the site 12 times a year, we're visiting 4 times or 8 times, because we've cut down those number of visits, that we're not doing the monthly temperature. We can start to roll all that information up around vehicles, carbon footprint saving. If you know what your energy kilowatt, your kilowatt per hour price is for gas, electric, your water rates, we can start rolling that up into, we've not flushed that tap for this period of time, and it's customizable with flow rates and all sorts of parameters by site, by sensor, so that all that information can be rolled up and we can give you an environmental impact. So it's not just compliance, it's what you're saving and what you're able to do to impact the environment as well. That was a really high-level introduction. I said I could talk about it for hours. The room out the back there is 1011S. If anybody wants a live demonstration later on, I'll be more than happy to walk you through it so you can see it in action. 10 minutes never does it justice, but I hope that's been something that you'll take away. And please call me at any point throughout the day if you want to go through it in a live scenario. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, so I had a few questions. We'll catch up on a couple of them now. So one of the questions is, what are the trends on site that are using remote monitoring? Is it identifying more required remediations? Is it showing end users becoming complacent?
Look, it'll open a can of worms when you have deployed it. And I refer back to the the temperature, the fact that you're taking a temperature, the actual task is a really low-skill task, but it's of high importance. And it's usually the cleaners that get the task of on-site, that get the task of carrying it out. And look, we do see, oh yes, I've done my weekly flushing, or I've done my monthly temperature. And when we deploy these sensors, we actually sometimes disprove that. But you then are on a journey of understanding what your compliance really is once you've deployed it. So what we want to do is make sure the compliance is correct. Yeah, and we want to give the right level of data.
Another question is, I've worked with lots of poor water hygiene companies. I hope they're not an existing client. How do you push the narrative to close the loop? And do you find that low-risk clients are interested?
Yeah, we work with every client in terms of the data that we receive. And like I said, there is an account manager that sits behind all of this information. So it's about us being as proactive with it as well, to make sure that we're taking that responsibility of compliance to the client and working with them to understand where they actually sit in terms of the data. Yes, it produces non-conformance. Yes, it does produce in areas where we then need to have follow-ups and do additional work. But that is only in relation to keeping that customer on the right side of the legislation.
Another question.
As far as small clients, they like it. A lot of our small clients are relatively low touch in terms of the number of times that we have to interact with them. And having that readily available, they can just go on at any time and view that information.
Okay. One other question was, an external contractor could go in, cut pipe work out without us knowing, could have a sensor. How do you deal with that? I assume that once you can detect that the sensor's not pulsing,
yeah,
it's either failed or it's been removed, and then you can address it.
Yeah, if ever the sensor's removed or damaged or whatever, then there's a signal that comes back and tells us that it's not operating how it should. And we can actually see where, the trends. You can look back at trends where that temperature might be fluctuating throughout a period of time, and all of a sudden it's not working, or it stays flatlined in terms of the graph. So we know then that it's potentially an issue, and we can report that back to the client, the end user, and do something about it, help them do something about it.
One question we've not had, but I thought we would, and I thought I'd ask it, is return on investment. So I think a lot of people would be thinking this is fantastic, can save time on labour and so on, but what does it cost? On side-by-side basis, I understand, but
great question.
Indicative.
One of the reasons that this technology has been around for a while, right? IoT, we've all heard of it. One of the prohibiting factors has been cost, and being able to deliver that out into the marketplace, comparable to sending a tech in a van. So actually, this does return in most cases within an 18-month period. Some a lot quicker. It depends on the size of the estate.
And you get 100% test.
Absolutely.
Because,
yeah.
Even if you can't get access, you'll still get the result.
Yeah.
Excellent. Everyone find that interesting? Yeah. Any more questions? Thought so. That's good. I'm glad you're here.
They were all my questions as well.
Oh, were they good?
It's because I'm excited about it. I love this.
You're a rock client already, aren't you?
I am, yeah, obviously. Yeah. Just in terms of what you've just said about the IoT and that it's more affordable now, where do you think you are on the journey and it actually really taking off in the industry then, where all your clients are coming to you and that's their first port of call? Because we're still taking on clients where we're trying to convince them, but they're just set in their old ways.
Great question. Rock, I'm proud to say, I believe that we're the first business in the industry that are now putting this first instead of. So this will be our primary offering, rather than the traditional tech in a van. So all new clients, and we're in the process of converting our client base into remote technology, because we've done the due diligence, we've got the price point, we know it works. We spent 2 years developing this, so we're now in a position where this is our primary offering. We'll still do it the traditional way if the client really wants that. But there's so many benefits in this. We're leading the industry in terms of putting this out there as our primary form of compliance.